If you are new to IB teaching and you are currently worried about how to best prepare your diploma students for their May examinations, the one thing I would like to tell you is that the best use of your time right now is not content revisions. Your students do not need another content revision session. They could do that perfectly on their own. However, what they do need is advice on exam techniques, on how to turn all the content, all the knowledge that they have into successful marks. Right now, most of your students know enough. They just need practice on how to ensure they are going to be able to show it correctly in the exam. If you are new to the IB, this is the most important advice I can give you right now. Students can revise independently on their own. However, examination technique is something that needs to be developed, and that will be the best use of your time right now. I would also like to address a common misconception, and this is how we define examination technique. Most teachers treat it as advice. Read the question carefully, manage your time, check your work before submitting, but that's not really technique. Exam technique is not just a list of tips, it is a set of transferable academic skills that students need to use consistently and under time pressure. So we're talking about skills like interpreting command terms at the right cognitive level, structuring responses so marks can be awarded, using reflection appropriately, integrating evidence into reasoning, managing time strategically. And here's where revision sessions often go wrong. We use lesson time to revisit content when students can study independently instead of teaching the one thing they cannot practice effectively on their own: how to think and respond under exam conditions. The assumption is that students will absorb exam technique without it needing to be taught directly. It feels logical. Students do a past paper, they get feedback, they improve. But actually what happens is quite different. Students gain knowledge, but their responses don't always make that knowledge visible in the way that needs to be. And as an examiner, I see this constantly. Students stuck in the middle bands, in 4s and 5s, not because they don't understand or they don't have the language, but it's just because their answers are not structured in a way that access the marks in the higher bands. And when we rely on students to just pick it up, what we're doing is we are placing the responsibility on them for something they haven't been taught really. Most teachers use time practice as assessment, and that's the mistake. Time practice is not just assessment. It is a training environment in which students practice the skill of performing under pressure, and this is vital. If students only experience time pressure in exam mocks or in real exams, you're asking them to perform a skill that they have never rehearsed. Students can revise content independently, but they cannot replicate exam conditions meaningfully on their own, not with the same discipline, reflection, or feedback. And that's why this belongs in your classroom. You can start introducing short, regular timed tasks right from year one, not full papers, just focus questions. And it's also very important that you always follow these tasks with reflection. What have you done well? What do you need to improve? Where did you lose time? What type of decisions did you have to make? What would you change next time? And it's only when we do this that we start preparing our students, and what you will see improvement happening. And here's another issue. Feedback often sounds helpful, but it isn't. When we say, oh, that was good analysis, develop this further, strong argument, it feels right, but it doesn't really change student performance. General feedback doesn't help a student improve their technique. What helps is feedback that speaks the language of the assessment criteria, of the Markscheme. Students need clarity. They need to understand what they've done right and what they need to improve and how they need to improve. And this is the work that they cannot do alone. They need you for that. If lesson time is not used for this, they simply don't get access to it. The third pillar is modeling. Students cannot aim for a standard that they had never seen. And this is where I want to pause for a moment, especially if you are new to IB teaching. You might be thinking, but how do I know what a top level response actually looks like? And that's a very valid question, because your reference point is still developing. So don't guess. What you need to do is borrow expertise while you build your own. So look for strong models in your colleagues, your more experienced colleagues, in past student work, and in particular in the IB subject reports that are published every year. They contain very, very useful examiner commentary, and they will give you a very good idea of what examiners are looking for. These documents are not optional, they are your shortcut to understanding what excellence looks like. And then you can bring that knowledge into your classroom. So you can, for instance, deconstruct responses with your students, show where marks are earned, make the thinking visible, and then immediately get the students to try. That combination is extremely powerful and is what builds performance. If you change nothing else this week, just do this. Stop using lesson time to reteach content and instead replace one or two of your lessons with examination technique. Build short time tasks into that time, use criteria-based feedback consistently, analyze strong models with your students, and make sure they internalize the assessment criteria. This is not more work, it's just a better use of the time that you have right now. And try to start from year one. If you leave it until year two, students are trying to recall content, apply knowledge, learn exam performance all at once, and that's a lot. And that's probably why results plateau. So give yourself plenty of time. Expert IB teachers understand this. Content builds knowledge, but technique converts knowledge into marks. And those are not the same thing. So remember, students can revise content on their own, but they cannot teach themselves how to perform in an IB exam at a top level. That is your role. So this week, take one revision lesson and turn it into an exam technique training. And that's where results start to change. And if you want further support, you can explore more at Mestralia Education. I'll see you in the next video.